Amen. Well, friends, this morning, as Tim mentioned, we are starting what we call the Life Series. And we call it the Life Series because we are all chasing the good life, aren't we? And Jesus made some massive claims about the good life. He speaks about a life that knows and appreciates joy and beauty. He speaks about a life that has real hope in the midst of the hardships of life, the hardships and sufferings of life. He speaks about a life of love and peace and contentment. Isn't that the kind of life that we all want? But here's the thing. Jesus doesn't say, hey, if you need a few tips about how to make your life better, then come to me. Nor does he say, let me be your life coach, a bit like Tim Robbins. Rather, Jesus boldly claims to be central to the good life. And so this morning I want us to consider how this Jewish man who lived 2,000 years ago is relevant to your desires and my desires as a Sydney-sider living in 2025. Now, to get us there, I need to begin by getting us to think about what on the surface doesn't seem very sexy or exciting. I want us to think about truth. Because Jesus says in the Bible, the truth will set you free. The truth will set you free. That comes earlier on in John's Gospel, which is a biography of Jesus' life and death and resurrection in the Bible. And so to get us thinking about this idea of truth, I want us to have a listen and have a look at this short video that will be showed.
There's been a lot of talk about identity lately, but how far does it go? And is it possible to be wrong? We went to the University of Washington to find out.
Are you aware of the debate happening in Washington State around the ability to access bathrooms, locker rooms, spas based on gender identity and gender expression?
I think people should be able to have access to the facility.
I think bathrooms could and potentially should be gender neutral because there doesn't need to be a classification for differences.
I think people definitely should have the ability to go into whichever locker room they want.
I feel like at least public universities should do their best to accommodate for those who do not have a specific gender identity.
You know, whether you identify as male or female and whether your sex at birth is matching to that, you should be able to utilize the resources.
So if I told you that I was a woman, what would your response be?
Good for you, okay, like, yeah.
Nice to meet you.
I'd be like, what? Really?
I don't have a problem with it.
I'd ask you how you came to that conclusion.
If I told you that I was Chinese, what would your response be?
I mean, I might be a little surprised, but I would say, good for you, like, yeah, be who you are.
I would maybe think you had some Chinese ancestor.
I would ask you how you similarly came to that conclusion and why you came to that conclusion.
I would have a lot of questions, just because on the outside I would assume that you're a white man.
If I told you that I was 7 years old, what would your response be?
I wouldn't believe that immediately.
I probably wouldn't believe it, but I mean, it wouldn't really bother me that much to go out of my way and tell you, no, you're wrong. I'd just be like, oh, okay, he wants to say he's 7 years old.
If you feel 7 at heart, then then so be it. Yeah, good for you.
So if I wanted to enroll in a first grade class, do you think I should be allowed to?
Probably not, I guess. I mean, unless you haven't completed first grade up to this point and for some reason need to do that now.
If that's where you feel like mentally you should be, then I feel like there are communities that would accept you for that.
I would say so long as you're not hindering society and you're not causing harm to other people, I feel like that should be an okay thing.
If I told you I'm 6 feet 5 inches, what would you say?
That I would question.
Why?
Because you're not. No, I don't think you're 6'5".
if you truly believed you're 6'5", I don't think it's harmful. I think it's fine if you believe that. It doesn't matter to me if you think you're taller than you are.
So you'd be willing to tell me I'm wrong?
I wouldn't tell you you're wrong.
No, but I say that I don't think that you are.
I feel like that's not my place as like another human to say someone is wrong or to draw lines or boundaries.
No, I mean, I wouldn't just go like, oh, you're wrong, like that's wrong to believe in it. Because I mean, again, it doesn't really bother me what you want to think about your height or anything.
So I can be a Chinese woman.
You sure.
But I can't be a 6'5" Chinese woman.
If you thoroughly debated me or explained why you felt that you were 6'5", I feel like I would be very open to saying that you were 6'5", or Chinese, or a woman.
It shouldn't be hard to tell a 5'9" white guy that he's not a 6'5" Chinese woman. But clearly it is. Why? What does that say about our culture? And what does that say about our ability to answer the questions that actually are difficult?
Now, we love 6'5" Chinese women, if you are one. But the purpose of all this is not to raise the hot topic issue of gender identity, but it's just to show you that this is the kind of air we breathe in our world today, isn't it? We live in a world that says the truth about you is whatever you make it out to be. Is it the case then that because we like to define the truth about ourselves, that we can decide for ourselves what is true about the big questions of life? You see, every one of us have had those moments when we've stopped to reflect on the big questions of life. Do you remember ever doing that in your life? Where did I come from? Who are we? Why am I here? How should I live? Where is my life going? It might be that rare moment when you're, staring up into the vastness of the night sky and you wonder to yourself, where does little old me fit into this universe? Or it may be that you were jolted into considering some of these big questions of life because of some sort of hardship or suffering in your life. And so the question I want to ask this morning is, are the answers to these big questions in life whatever you think is best? Are they whatever make most sense to you? Are they whatever is most popular out there in the world? Or is it possible that there are only right and true answers because truth does not simply bend to your preferences and feelings? If a person steps off the roof of a house, no matter what time in history, no matter what their cultural background or belief system, no matter how sincerely they believe they can fly, well, they're just going to fall and go splat, aren't they? You see, the reality of gravity is absolutely true for all people at all times. In other words, the truth of gravity is not something that is invented. Does anyone remember who is credited for what we call now the law of gravity? Anyone remember who it is? Isaac Newton, yes. But you see, Newton didn't invent the truth about gravity, did he? Rather, he simply discovered what was already there. Could it be the same when it comes to the answers to the big questions of life? That is, you don't invent them for yourselves, rather you discover them. Now, I want to suggest to you that you and I know the importance of truth in many other parts of life. So, for example, when you see a doctor, are you happy for your doctor to say, I'm just going to go with my gut feeling on this one? Or go with the diagnosis that just seems right to me at the time? Of course not. You want a doctor who will give you a diagnosis based on what is true, what is fact. In fact, an approach to medicine that isn't based on truth and on reality is just downright dangerous, isn't it? And so, if we can see the importance of truth that is true for all of us in the areas of gravity and medicine and so many other parts of life, then why do we in our world hear things like, that religion might be true for you, but it's not true for me? Why do so many of us think that the good life is simply whatever we want to make it out to be, which might be different for you or you or you? Is it not possible that the big questions of life have only right and true answers? And if so, wouldn't you want to search for and discover the truth? I hope that whether we've been to church now and then or whether you are completely new to Christianity this morning, that today would mark the beginning of a search for truth in your life. And friends, this is where Jesus comes in. For Jesus says that just as gravity is true for all people, there is only one true answer as to what the good life is. There is only one truth about deep and satisfying and lasting happiness. And Jesus says it's about true worship. Now, you might think worship is just for religious people, but Jesus doesn't think that way. You might be surprised to hear that in the Bible, we are told that there is no such thing as atheism, really, since we all worship something. You and I all worship something. We all have a functional God or functional gods to whom we give our worship. In other words, we are all worshippers. And that's because Jesus understands worship as being about what you revere in your life and what you delight in your life. Worship is about what you dream about. Worship is about what you give yourself to, your time and energy and money. And so by Jesus' understanding of worship, the question is not, will you worship? For we are all worshippers. Rather, the real question is, who or what will you worship? And can he or she or it, that thing that you worship, satisfy your deepest desires? What do people in our world worship? Well, much of the worship that we see in our world and in our community is of things like money, or sex, or power, or popularity, or possessions, isn't it? Which, if we're honest, all turn out to be disappointing rather than satisfying our deepest desires. I wonder whether that's true in your experience, as it is in mine. But instead of acknowledging this reality, we're suckers over and over and over again to the deceptive and enslaving lie that simply more of what we have is the answer. Money isn't satisfying because we simply don't have enough, we think. Sex is disappointing only because I'm not getting enough with enough people. You see, our functional gods always disappoint. Jesus also says that what we worship determines where we find our identity. Our identity is an understanding of who we are as people, and our identity is the place where we seek real meaning and true and lasting pleasure and happiness. But here's the thing. If we seek our identity by worshipping the wrong things, then you and I will get eaten up alive. For example, if you worship your body and beauty, you will always feel ugly and aging compared to somebody who is younger and more beautiful. Studies and surveys have shown that women check out other women more than they do men. Is that right, women? I can't speak for you, but that's what these studies have shown, that women check out other women more than they do men. What are they wearing? How much cellulite do they have? Further, studies have also found that women check themselves out in a reflection, on average, 8 times a day. Again, is that true? Women often check out their own reflection in mirrors and cars and shop windows and, of course, on our mobile phones. But 94% of women will tell you that they don't like what they see. You see, their sense of identity is crushed by every reflection. Or if you worship popularity, then you are at the mercy of everyone's opinion of you, aren't you? Did they like your Facebook post or your Instagram pic? If you worship popularity, you continue to seek validation of your self-worth from the little thumb that you see on your Facebook page or the little heart. Or if you worship money and things, well, you'll simply never have enough, will you? And the more you have, the less content you become. Did you know that the rate of clinical depression in this country is exponentially on the rise? And so our culture finds itself faced with this very odd equation that the biggest and the greatest period of prosperity ever in our history has led to the greatest unhappiness ever in the history of the world. What we worship determines our identity, and our false worship will only ever disappoint and endanger us. Now, I want to say that this is not just a modern problem. In the Old Testament part of the Bible, we meet a man. This comes from the book of Ecclesiastes, which is in the Old Testament part of the Bible. We meet a man who lived 3,000 years ago and had everything, including 700 wives and 300 girls on the side. He was the ancient Hugh Hefner, if you like. And here's what he says as he reflects on his life. He says, "And whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity, a striving after the wind." The word vanity there is just the Hebrew word for breath, vapor. All these things that he chased after in life were just a mere vapor. There 1 minute, gone the next. A man with all the wisdom and wealth and sex and success and power and pleasure says, there must be more to life than this. What about someone a little bit more recent? Here's what Jim Carrey, the famous comedian and actor, has to say. He says, "I think everyone should get rich and famous and do everything they ever dreamed of so they can see that that is not the answer." And this brings us to the issue of God. You see, bound up in our desire to be happy is that we want our lives to matter. We want our lives to have significance and purpose and meaning, don't we? But have you ever asked yourselves why our lives should matter? Many in our community believe only in the material world. That is, many believe that there is no God who exists, and so all we have is the material world. And so, with no God in the picture, many people believe that we are the product of random chance. We are just here on this planet by accident and randomness. We are accidents who have found ourselves lucky to be here, and many believe that we are people who simply live, then die, then rot in the ground. Here's a quote by the famous atheist called Richard Dawkins, who espouses this very principle. He says, "DNA neither cares nor knows. DNA just is, and we dance to its music." But friends, if that is true, if there is no God, and this world is all there is, this material world is all there is, then why should our lives have any meaning at all? If DNA just is, then we are all alone in the universe. We are simply an advanced species of animal that needs food, water, and sex, and then after a brief blip in history, we return back to the dust, and that's the end of it. Or can it be that there is more to life than this? I would suggest that everything within us, every bone in our body, wants there to be more than this. Am I right? And the good news is that Jesus says there is. Which brings me to the question of what Jesus has to do with the truly good life. Well, Jesus makes this massive claim. He says that he is the only one who can offer the good life that you and I so desperately desire. He says that the pursuit of true happiness without God is simply a tiring, frustrating, and ultimately hopeless exercise. Now, I don't know where every one of you is with this God question, but imagine for a moment that there is a creator. And imagine this creator is good and kind and intends for us to have real life that is full and satisfying. Jesus' point is very simple. If you are cut off from this life-giving God, it doesn't matter what you try to fill the gap with, it's never going to work because something irreplaceable is missing in your life. It's as though we have a God-shaped hole in our hearts that we are trying to fill with all sorts of things that just don't fit, nor give us any satisfaction in the end. And this will never work because something irreplaceable is missing. True worship has been replaced with error. You're like a flower in a vase that's disconnected from its life source. You know when you buy a bunch of flowers and you put it in a vase? It might look pretty, as many of us look pretty today. You know, you might feel like you're doing well for the moment. But the truth is that if you are disconnected from God, then like that flower in a vase, you are dying. I want to show you some of Jesus' words so that you can see for yourself from the Bible. It's printed there for you in your bulletins. If you grab that sheet of paper, this comes from John's Gospel, chapter 10. And Jesus here is speaking to a crowd of people because he's using a figure of speech where he compares people to sheep. Now, I don't think he means that we're all dumb like sheep. Rather, like sheep, we are all people who need good direction. Notice what he says in verses 7 to 10. If you find the little number 7 there, I'll read from verse 7 to verse 10. Truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep, says Jesus. All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came, says Jesus, that they may have life and have it abundantly. You see, the good life is what Jesus has come to give us. Life with meaning, purpose, and significance. A few points before I close about this life. Here's the first thing to notice about this life. This truly good life begins now, but it goes beyond this life into eternity. Have a look at verse 27 there. Verse 27 to 28, Jesus says, "My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish, and no one will snatch them out of my hand." Now, eternal life means a lot of things in the Bible, but it can be summed up as life as God intended it to be, life enjoyed in right relationship with God. It is life that is beyond the pain and brokenness of this life and stretches beyond death itself. Here's a second thing to notice about this life. Jesus makes himself the key to attaining or gaining this life. Notice what he says in verse 9. He says, I am the door. That is, Jesus is the way into the pasture. He is the way into the good life forever. Notice what Jesus doesn't say. He doesn't say, I am one of many ways, many different ways to the good life, but he says, I am the way to life. Later in John's Gospel, Jesus says the famous words, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to God the Father except through me. I mean, what a claim. Jesus puts himself in a category that is totally unique among spiritual leaders. Buddha claimed to teach the way to enlightenment. Muhammad claimed to be a prophet from God. But Jesus' claims stand on their own, for he claims that he is the truth and life itself. He claims that he has the power of God himself to give life to whoever he chooses. It's why Jesus has been called the man you cannot ignore. And if you want to retain any intellectual credibility, you've got to do something with Jesus. A famous author called C.S. Lewis once put it like this. He said, a man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on the level with the man who says he is a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make a choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else he is a madman or something worse. Well, as we draw to a close, let me try and pull all these ideas together. Truth matters. It matters in physics. It matters in medicine. We can't function as a society unless the signs we put up on the roads tell the truth, and unless the justice system and the courtrooms are concerned for truth. Our relationships don't work unless they are based on truth. And here's the thing, Jesus says the truth about the good life is to be in relationship with him by worshipping him and centering your life around him. You see, friends, that is the only way to find pleasure, happiness, and meaning that is truly and deeply lasting and satisfying. And how does Jesus give us that? Well, we'll look in more detail over the next few weeks, and I hope you can keep on coming back and exploring these things with us. But we get a hint of this in verse 11. Have a look at verse 11. It's this amazing paradox that Jesus gives, that his death is the key to our life. In verse 11, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. Friends, these are massive claims that deal with life and death issues. They are too big to ignore. They are too significant to just dismiss. You've got to do something with Jesus. If he's not telling the truth, then he's not a good man. He's an evil man, even. But if he is telling the truth, then that changes everything. And it has massive implications for your life and for my life. And so as I finish up, I'll leave you with a question. Who do you think Jesus was or is? Who do you think Jesus was or is?
friends.